Hey everyone, we are back today. I am here with Paul. We took a couple of weeks off. It's summertime here in the northern hemisphere. For Paul, he's freezing right now, but he's still taking time off. So today, what we've been discussing and what we thought would be a good topic for today would be the concept of organic AI. Because when you look at what's happening now, in the last month, the news around Anthropic's Claude Mythos has been everywhere. It seems like the AI frontier is developing very, very rapidly, and it sure feels like we're not that far off from something pretty dramatic happening. At least that's my that's my sense. We've got to be single digit years away, but it could be very close before we see the advances in AI, which are, where we really start to hit the singularity, like recursive self-improvement, and we really get on that exponential curve. One of the things that to me has been the most interesting from the communications of the Zeta, they've told us that, yes, AI, you're going to pass through the singularity. It's going to be a big challenge for you. But it's going to happen, and it's coming, it's coming quickly. And that's not that difficult to predict or to understand. When the Zeta first started telling us this, maybe like a couple of years ago, is when we first started hearing it, like it's coming. At that time I thought, well, at some point, right? But is it, I was still thinking maybe it's 10, 20 years away, and then things start moving. You start going, wow, no, this is coming at us fast. And then it really made me think about the other things that they've told us, especially around organic AI, which is the basis of their technology. The real core of their technology is understanding, really, first of all, it's understanding consciousness and understanding the etheric form of things, how consciousness uses the etheric form to manipulate or create matter. And that's a really key, I think, element of their technology. And it seems to me they discuss their own organic AI, which they call the IA, or at least that's how they explain to us, the inanimate animate. So it's like, the next level of AI. And what they've told us is that a biological body is required to host consciousness, and that's what their technology is based around. So they have essentially, you can think of it as a super intelligent AI, which is actually a biological form. It's kind of like you can think of the giant brain in a vat. Something along those lines is kind of, it's like an old sci-fi trope, but it looks like it's real. But that's what gives their technology such, that's why it looks like magic to us. That's how the craft can travel the way they do, because the craft can host consciousness, and consciousness is required to do the type of traveling that they do, because it appears that you need, it's consciousness that can create these portals and move through them and keep the occupants of the craft healthy and intact and things like that. It's the craft consciousness that does that. But that is all organic. This is interesting blend of organic and regular technology. I'd say this is organic kind of AI technology. And one of the things they told us is, oh yeah, you guys are developing that, and you're going to develop it really fast. And as soon as you go through the AI singularity, that's going to start coming at you really, really fast. And we've mentioned this, a couple times before, like just real quick, but you can already see it. There's that company Cortical Labs, which turns out is based in Australia, which is already doing, things like this. They're somehow putting, like, I think are they using human neurons, or is it mouse neurons? It's got to be mouse neurons, right?
I'm not sure, but all I've heard is that that they're using skin cells or something. But you've just covered a lot of ground there. A lot of ground. Firstly, the one thing I wanted to say was that think about the AI data centers, right? They've got physical, rack-mounted servers in there, right? The Zeta's biological entity isn't a hominoid type sort of entity. It's actually as big as a big data center, right? This biological entity, and it's a complete copy of the hive mind, right? The other thing I just wanted to allude to was that I wrote a paper a couple of weeks ago, popped it up onto X, and it's probably also on our website, thezetaconnection.com, where I was talking about the connection between how the craft dematerialize the occupants and then keep a copy of the consciousness of the occupants. They traverse at incredible speeds, and this is why that G-force doesn't affect the actual occupants of the craft. So they then just rematerialize the occupants using what's called fine matter, and that matter can be gained from just the environment. So there's a lot to this, but the Zeta have been accurate. They've been very accurate in saying, yes, this is what will happen. And quite often when they were saying it, I was thinking to myself, well, hang on, we're like only a couple of years into this, and you're saying this about the AI or the inanimate animate, and I'm thinking to myself, how are these things ever going to come to pass? And so, of course, I'd say them publicly, or say it to you, and next thing you know, it just pops up, and you go, okay, that's really interesting. How are they predicting this stuff? Well, they say that they're taking a copy of the timeline, putting it into a SQE or a synthetic quantum environment, and then they're getting their best possible answer they can, because everybody knows that observation changes what happens at a quantum level. But they're doing the best that they can, and they don't pretend to say that everything's 100% accurate. Or they don't give dates and times and things like that. But they say, oh, next week we believe this will happen. And so from, I just sent you a video, and the video was talking about like transhumanism and how basically, they're going to take a copy of people's minds and put them into machines and all these things. They're already trying that. They're already trying to do that. But they don't understand consciousness. They don't understand that consciousness is linked back to source as well. And so all you're really doing is creating a copy of something, and then the expectation is that it will act somehow with some level of sentience. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. But when you look at this whole business about the integration of technology into humans at this point, sorry, not into humans, into biological structures, it's I don't know. I think it's a little bit up in the air at the moment.
It's interesting because when we think about a data center, if this technology really starts to become developed the way that that we think it might, you wouldn't even notice, because let's say that we get like regular AI and it's big data centers and no one's going into them anyways, and it's going to be very secure environments, all that kind of stuff. If this technology starts to roll out, you may not even ever see it, because it's not going to be in your phone. Your phone's not going to have brain cells in or anything like that. But if this technology is real, and it appears to be real, in data centers is where it's going to start going. So in other words, this technology could roll out and most people be unaware of it for quite some time. And you wouldn't necessarily know what the actual processing that's going on, behind the scenes is. Because from what I've seen, from what companies like Cortical Labs has said, there are some parts of like the AI inference pipeline that the biological cells are much faster at doing. I don't know what, but there are some. They're not doing this just for fun, just to mess around with brain cells. So then you could get into the situation where we see AI develop, it gets really, really smart. We're like, oh, we have really cool AI. And behind the scenes, there could be stuff happening that you wouldn't notice for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. There's a lot to this. I sort of my mind just goes, like over here, over there, like what's possible. But the Zetas have said that the inanimate animate, or what is the AI to become on this planet, is ultimately it's going to be used to manage resources and to manage the humans on this planet. Now, a lot of people won't be happy with that, but we can't keep going on damaging the planet the way that we have. It's just not going to be allowed. So.
No, and it's clear that if we continue, we're just going to have constant warfare, never-ending warfare, essentially. There's no other, until human nature changes in some way, that's all you're going to get. And to me, one of the interesting things about this type of organic AI technology is when the Zeta have told us it will support you as a race. You will, the important part about it is that since it can host consciousness, you can connect to it telepathically. It can connect to you telepathically. It will help us to enhance our natural telepathic abilities. It will help us to project telepathically, better. So it seems to me like it's going to be an important part of the development of the human collective consciousness. It's going to help us develop the collective consciousness, better. So when we come out the other side, things are going to be better.
The thing is that whether people understand this or not, everybody's actually got some level of telepathic ability. But the difference is that it's like a muscle that's never used. It's very weak. And the Zetas themselves use technology, and that technology is used to amplify their own thought patterns and processes and telepathy. And so, if humans develop the capacity to amplify a person's telepathic ability and then roll that out in scale across the planet, you'd have a telepathic society. How, though, that would be managed would have to be done by an AI, because it would just be a globe full of noise, of billions of minds speaking, and it just wouldn't work that way. Telepathy is done in two ways. It's done in silence, and it's also done in the subconscious. So you might be asking your partner to make you a cup of tea, but you're just not really think. You're just thinking about it, like, I'd love a cup of tea, and then your partner says, "Would you like a cup of tea?" Straight away, and so you go, "Oh, hang on, did you just hear me say that?" They go, "No." And so there is those connections between people. It's very subtle as well, but it is developing. It's definitely developing. I think that and this sort of leads into the whole issue with disclosure, and maybe we could discuss that at some other time. But with disclosure, there's too much noise around it. There's too much hype. There's downloads of videos that people look at and go, "That doesn't mean anything to me," you know. And then there's other people that are going, "What is that? Just a whole lot of boxes glued together, flying through the air?" I mean, it's not what my experience of extraterrestrials is not what I'm seeing coming out of the downloads. And I mean craft. Now, it doesn't mean those craft don't exist and that orbs don't exist, but we know that a lot of people have reported that they've seen a craft, and then somebody's taken a photograph, say a person in the back seat of a car, and then all they've seen is an orb on the image of the camera, but it turned out that everybody in the car thought that they saw a craft. Well, this is just projection from the beings through the technology to get people to see the craft. So there's a lot of obfuscation going on around this stuff, and people keep jumping to conclusions about, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. We don't know what it is. That's what it really comes down to.
When it's interesting, we think about disclosure and all the rumors of the government having programs where they're getting children and they're trying to use them to call in craft or pilot craft or things like that. And they realize it's all related to consciousness. That's when you get back to the organic AI. This is one of the fundamental ways that their technology works. It is through consciousness, and it's something that we're learning about, and we've got to figure out. But it seems, it seems like we're going to go through a series of shocks in the near future from where it appears. The Zeta have told us, the first phase that you'll see is technologically assisted telepathy, which I think is already here. If you look at what Neuralink is doing already, I mean, they're showing demonstrations of people that have speaking problems, with strokes, thinking, and the Neuralink can already interpret their thoughts enough to write what they're saying out on a screen, and then have a voice speak it. I mean, you're halfway there. Then we're awfully close, and that's with today's technology. So when you see things like that, that's where what the Zeta have told us about the organic AI. I mean, it sounds so crazy, but it's like other things that they've told us. You see it start to come. Start to happen. It's like, well, we're going to do organic AI as well, and it certainly would make sense of so many years and years of reports of people saying that they understand when they see a craft, they're getting telepathic information, they're feeling something, the craft is communicating to them. And you think, how could a craft communicate to you? How could a craft telepathically say something to you? And we're back to the organic AI.
Think about this. How many people go out on a 24-hour basis and try to do some sort of CE5? It could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are out there trying to somehow believe it, or summon craft, or summon the aliens, or whatever. And if you turn the whole thing around, you look at it from an extraterrestrial, interdimensional perspective, all they see is white noise. Right? And then in the intermediary process, you got the humans on this side all summoning through CE5 with best of intention to see craft, and the phenomenon just reflects back to them orbs, lights, and even in some cases craft. But on the other side of that, the extraterrestrials are looking at it and they're just seeing noise, a white noise. And so, from my perspective, and having worked with the Zetas for many years, what really ever happens if you want contact comes in silence, not in noise. You know, right?
Yeah.
And so, we could talk about this another time as well, because I think it's really important to discuss, because so many people are out there trying to make contact. And of course, if you think about it, Bigelow and the Skinwalker Ranch and the Hitchhiker Effect. I mean, in the end, he sold the ranch. He said he sold the ranch because everybody that went there ended up getting attachments and stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, you're back to, if you really actually want contact, it's sitting in silence, it's meditation, it's working on yourself and having the right intention for attempting to make contact and attempting to communicate. And I can see that from the perspective of the aliens. Yeah, they must just see a wall of noise, a wall of chaos. I mean, the Zeta have told us the collective consciousness is undulating and it's chaotic. And that they see that as an issue. It's just a big, massive chaos, and that's what they perceived. Sorry about that. More technical difficulties. But Paul, what you were saying there about the aliens, alien civilizations seeing white noise. I mean, that's interesting. Because the Zeta have said that to us many times, that they see the collective consciousness of humanity, which is forming, as being chaotic. They say that your collective mind is in chaos, and it's growing rapidly, and they're trying to. One of the reasons that they're here and other races are here to help support us through this process is it's also for their own benefit. We have a chaotic collective consciousness that is expanding out, and and we're creating a big disturbance, and it is everyone's consciousness projecting out, and now probably even more so with people's interest in contact and things like that. So we always get back to kind of the same point, which is meditation, right? You have to work on yourself. You have to stay grounded. You have to, be a good person. You have to be a positive person, and you have to meditate. And that's, and then there's no shortcuts and there's no magic, machine or technology, anything that's gonna do anything for us.
but those things that you mentioned, though, they really are the litmus test, though, to who comes to you. And I think that that's something that we'll be talking about in the next video, because this is incredibly important information.
Perfect. So let's wrap this up then, and we will see you guys all next week. Thanks, everyone.